party people, and the place to be. I am Dave Valente, and thank you for watching the Political Deep Dive, joined as always by Dan Layman Fishman.
Party people in the house tonight. Sorry, said party people.
Throw your hands in the air and wave them like you just don't care.
That's how they
Whoever
know you're old in the club.
Yeah.
Facebook user is, I have to tell you, if Portal taught us anything, the cake is a lie.
I mean, Cake's a good band. Oh,
Cake's
no.
a great band. I love at least two of their songs. But I think that he's referencing South Park, Bigger, Longer, and Uncut.
Punch him. No, that's Punch Pie.
We were promised Punch Pie. Yes.
We were promised Punch Pie.
Either way, that's awesome. Facebook user, tell us who you actually are.
Yes, and we're also joined by AJ. How's the moving coming?
I'm really sore, so I think it's going well. We went through and organized and through our donate pile and our attempt to sell online pile, because I don't know, the Council of Homies decided that a yard sale was just not going to be worth it, because the last time it was rough. I didn't make a lot of money, and there were a whole lot of people forever anonymous. Ooh,
nice.
Super intrigued now.
Nice.
All capital letters too. But no, it's going well. We're working on that. We're working on lots and lots of things. So
excellent.
Yes. So beware, if you have me on any social media, you're going to be bombarded with crap that I am selling. My former possessions, the Lou Dog Design merch, of course, on my Etsy shop. Little QR code up there. Hey, Craig. We do have Political Deep Dive merch that is there as well.
It's very
Super
nice.
comfy. It didn't shrink or lose its lettering, because I ran it through the washer and dryer just to make sure.
There you go.
And this is my new favorite grocery bag. And I'm in Tennessee using this, so I'm just saying, I kind of enjoy people giving me a look.
Right,
anyway,
so
that's available.
I did a reverse DNS on the Facebook user and the guys in the New York district. Oh, hey, it's Tom Queter. Hey, Tom, how's it going?
What's up, Tom?
Oh, yay. What's up, homie?
Yep. I wanted to give a shout out to Tom's organization, Mobility Independence Foundation.
Yeah.
They just hired a new director of development,
Jeff
my
Lyons.
good friend, Jeff Lyons. Yeah. And, when you can hire a guy to do development who was a helicopter mechanic, and you're a lot of what you do involves machinery, knowing what's bullshit and what actually works. I think that's just a really good decision. I'm excited to see both of those dynamic individuals, Tom and Jeff, working together and what they're going to produce.
Heck yeah. Yeah, they're doing great work. So and growing by leaps and bounds. So it's good stuff to see. I know Tom teased out a little bit of good news that's supposed to be coming down the pike. So I'm interested to see that when it comes out. He can whisper it on this show if he would like to.
You'd have to
as an anonymous user.
Oh, right.
As a Facebook user.
Oh.
All right.
Let's go. Let's go, baby. We got so much to do.
Yeah, we got so much to do. All right. So this week we saw the start of the Trump trial in New York City. Lots of news that went on with it. Dude set himself on fire, although it was not related to anything really with the trial, other than the fact there was a shit ton of media just out there to watch it happen. But they were able to seat all the jurors, and they're going to be starting Monday with like opening arguments and all that fun stuff. So
that being said, two jurors have requested to be removed already.
So on I think Friday morning, of the first 7 that were seated, 2 were requested to be removed. And the reason why they were requested to be removed was that the media essentially doxed them. Like if you watch the media coverage of
Right.
The
Young
trial being seated.
Memorial Hospital, and it was just like, really?
Yeah, I mean, they were like giving out personal details. I mean, they might as well just named the people. I mean, they were
Yeah.
like, this guy was a lawyer and is a hedge fund manager and is a, this person has a tramp stamp that says two cocks at a time. I mean, like, what?
That could be anybody.
Well, yeah, that could be.
Anyone could be.
Who doesn't actually?
No, the media has done a great job of really screwing everything up for a while, honestly, because there are some things that should be left alone.
Yeah.
The jury of a trial like this should be left alone. The people that put that information out, they should face some kind of consequences, as far as I'm concerned. Because you know how hard how many jurors did they go through? You know
Yeah,
how
I mean,
hard it is to find somebody that doesn't have any social media. I was like, I would be counted out immediately. Like they were looking at your social media. There's so many of us that share memes and don't even think about it.
Well,
Oh, yeah.
The implication,
yeah. I actually I don't think that that's a bad reason for excluding somebody. If you put something in there indicating, that you're biased, right? I mean, let's look at it this way, right? They would be crazy to allow you on that jury, right, AJ?
Sure.
one would think.
Dave too, and me. You have to find somebody, if you can, who hasn't indicated a predisposition against Trump, or at least that they could, answer honestly and say that it was.
there was one though.
Yeah.
Alicia Dern shared this, but came from void area of this trial, and said one of the guys was asked. It says here that you tweeted, I quote, "Fuck that treasonous orange shit gibbon and the dead ferret on his head." Is that accurate? And it was. The tweet speaks for itself, Your Honor. That is awesome.
Do you
Great moments in trial in New York?
It really is. Yeah, I think that. I mean, I do think that you have to protect the anonymity of the jurors at this point in time. Like, that should just be a given from here on in. There's no reason why anybody needs to know who the jurors actually are.
Yeah.
No, not at all.
I completely agree.
I mean, they're going to have to get to a point where they're going to sequester these guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and
no, it's scary to be okay. We all know what happened to people that just happened to be working at the ballots, happened to be working at, counting the votes and everything. Their lives were ruined. They were mistreated. They were threatened. That some had to move. They lost their jobs, their positions, their communities. Yeah, I would be terrified to be a member of this jury, because if you vote with your conscience, which I'm assuming would be well, I don't know.
I think
let's say I could be impartial.
Well, but I would say that most people would say that it's very likely that he's going to be found guilty in this case. It seems like the evidence is overwhelming. So,
when it comes to Trump, it's such a fucking reality show, and it has been since 2016. We've all just been extras in his fucking reality show this entire time. It's very strange to me that this is actually happening. This is actually coming and taking place.
So you think he's going to get convicted?
He's still his defense, I imagine, is being paid for by the Republicans at this point, because all of that money has to be getting back to him.
I don't know if that's true. I do know, though, however, it came out at the convention this weekend, Michael Rechtenwald is paying himself a salary for running for president, which is some pretty crazy shit. So I do think that my guess, found guilty, pays a fine.
There's no jail time involved.
No jail time. Yeah. I mean, realistically speaking, right? I mean, first of all, let's talk about, if you think no victim, no crime, then I think most libertarians would say that no crime happened here.
I mean, you could say it's a fraud in that he
Well,
withheld information
from whom?
from the voters.
I mean, what is his obligation to release information to the voters?
It's
Voters can
not that
ask him all they want.
it wasn't that he was withholding information from the voters. He was paying others to withhold the information.
He was paid, yeah, which they did voluntarily in return for money. Right? I mean, it's like,
But when they donated for his
Yeah,
campaign. They didn't donate to pay
and it
the
was
porn
coming out of
star
campaign
off.
funds
well,
too.
so I
And I
agree
mean,
that
even libertarians have gotten in trouble for that shit. Looking at you, Tennessee.
so I would say that if you could find somebody with standing who said, yeah, I donated money for this reason and my money was spent on this
Michael
and
Cohen.
that's not what I wanted, maybe. But I guarantee you Trump can find donors to cover that, and say, yeah, I have all these voters who agree that I would spend this money on this.
I mean, Michael Cohen's probably got some standing.
Well,
he did jail time on this stuff.
he did jail time, but he had a different situation, right? He was an officer of the court, and so has a different onus on him about telling the truth, right? I think. I'm just saying. I'm not. Look, that's why I think that he will be convicted. There'll be no jail time, and he'll pay a fine. Probably not out of.
So nothing's going to happen to him.
Yeah.
No, of course.
This case is the least of all the cases.
Is anything going to happen at all before the election, before November?
No.
I mean, there's
Georgia.
That depends on if let's say the Supreme Court comes back in June and says Trump has no immunity.
Right.
That probably starts a
Supreme
few
Court.
of those cases. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know.
No, I do think that there's a pretty good chance of that. I mean,
if I'm Biden and they say that Trump has immunity, I'm sending SEAL Team 6 into Mar-a-Lago, man. Like, we're canceling this election. Because here's the thing: you tell a president they have immunity, and the only break on that immunity is being impeached.
Yeah,
he's got 50 votes in the Senate, but he's never going to get convicted. So he can do whatever the hell he wants.
Right, and we can complain that these guys are conservatives, but Gorsuch and
they've actually broken with Trump a few times.
Oh yeah, no, I mean they're very law and order types.
Yeah,
and if you're a law and order type, there's no way you say that the president can have immunity. And I mean, actually, they can cite the thing with Thomas Jefferson, or was it James Madison who got the ticket? And
Marbury versus Madison, is that the one you're talking about?
No, I'm not talking about Marbury versus Madison. Let me look this up. But there's a at one point in time, one of the presidents was convicted, not convicted, but given a speeding ticket in his carriage or something, and tried to get out of it by being the president. And
the Supreme Court also, did they ever get to a point of a decision on Nixon? Or did he resign before it did to preempt those decisions?
He resigned first.
I think so, yeah. So, I don't know. I mean, like, for me, this whole trial, going to air some dirty laundry. I don't think it changes any hearts and minds on the Trump side because first off, they know this about Donald Trump. We all know this about Donald Trump. Donald Trump is a philanderer. Like, that's not a surprise. And what is a surprise and what is disappointing is the people that call themselves evangelicals who will go to bat for him.
Right. That part is insane. Joe Walsh, former congressman, not Joe Walsh from the Eagles.
Yeah.
Recently tweeted on Threads, whatever you call it, you do it on Thread. Recently stitched on Threads that Franklin Graham said that everybody should vote for Donald Trump. Franklin Graham being the son of Billy Graham.
Yeah, Billy Graham.
Okay.
Ew.
And Joe Walsh said, Franklin Graham, you and I are Christians. We believe that Jesus Christ is our Lord and our Savior. And if you say that Donald Trump, people should vote for him, a man who, defiles everything about Christianity, then please stop wearing the cloth or something like
Yeah.
that. Very
Uh,
strong words.
Finally,
yes.
finally,
I mean, Joe
Nixon
people
Walsh
was
need
has
to
been
speak out.
Nixon was pardoned by Gerald Ford right after
right.
he left office. Basically, Ford wanted to put everything in the rearview mirror and just begin healing.
Yeah. You
Probably
want to
would have done okay
you want
to throw him in the pokey.
tell the garbanzo beanie joke again?
What is the difference between a chickpea and a garbanzo bean?
I don't know. What is the difference, Dave? Donald
Donald
Trump
Trump
can't
never
play
had
a garbanzo to bean on him.
No, Donald Trump never had a garbanzo bean on his face.
Yeah, we do sort of get into the salacious side of it, though. The Stormy
What's up,
Daniels
Jeff?
thing, it's people really going after Trump for something that is illegal, but it's hardly high crimes and misdemeanor, right? I mean, you could say, okay, maybe he shouldn't have paid the money out of his campaign funds, but that's just him being cheap. So it's not even that what he's doing is bad.
I mean, I'm not going to impeach
If we
him.
look
I
at it
mean,
as a
this isn't
business,
an
is that
impeachable
not
thing.
embezzling? If we
Well,
look at it as a business, these people were investing in him as a candidate. And he took that money that they invested for him as a candidate and was like, hey, I need you to not talk about my penis.
he can make a legitimate argument that keeping that story suppressed is better for his campaign. I mean, that's just
Sure.
100%, right?
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is a high.
I'm not looking at this as a libertarian. I'm looking at this as if I donate to a campaign, like I've donated to Chase's campaign,
Yeah.
right? And Chase is going all over the country and he's talking to people, but I find out he earmarks my campaign and that's what he buys drinks with all night. And I'm
What if
like,
I
well, I don't drink anymore. Chase shouldn't do that.
well so
Like,
let's not talk about Chase, but let's talk about Joe Jorgensen,
okay.
who did use some campaign money for a thing called Rent the Runway. And essentially what that does is they bring you 50 outfits to wear before every public appearance, and you get to pick what you want to out of it so that you don't have to worry about wearing the same clothes twice, which,
Which
if
is
you are
a much bigger deal for women than it is for men, yes.
absolutely true. And I would
Okay.
tell you that the money spent on this Rent the Runway was dirt cheap as far as I was concerned for what we were getting for it. And, Joe is a taller woman. They don't necessarily make a ton of clothes in larger
She
sizes.
is tall.
Yeah, or so I've heard.
Yeah.
She is tall.
So I thought that was money that was well spent, but it's definitely about appearances, right? And so, yeah, the argument is, and I'm not saying it's right or it's wrong. I'm saying that it is at least defensible that keeping stories out of the news is what modern politics is about. And so people who gave money for him to run for president, I guarantee you he could find people who say, absolutely, I would give the president the authority to do whatever he wanted to with my money.
Well, yes, I know that there are those people.
Oh,
I
yeah. I mean,
don't know that we can, because I don't. It seems to me that it is a very slippery slope where we're like, no, it's absolutely okay to use campaign funds to make somebody like not tell the truth about you, because that's. I understand politics is nasty and gross, and I've seen the sausage made, and it's fucking disgusting. I get it.
Right.
I also think that the man has to be guilty of something because he's done all of these things. I don't even care if because he's not going to get jail time. Let's be honest. We all know that. He's going to get a fine. The Republican Party's going to pay for him. That's great. They're
maybe he
stupid.
gets an
That's what they
ankle
keep
monitor.
doing with it. That's
Yeah.
great.
I
But
think
I feel like there needs
Georgia,
to be an actual consequence for the man. There has to be something.
I think
I
that
mean,
Georgia
come
potentially
on.
could be bigger.
Well,
First of
Georgia's
all,
going to be bigger in that if he gets elected in November,
yeah,
he can shut down all the federal cases. He can just shut them down because
Pretty much.
right,
whoever he nominates for the Department of Justice can just shut it down.
yep,
But Georgia, he
Yep.
can't,
right,
um, unless he declares martial law or something along those lines. That can
I
go
wouldn't
forward,
put it past him.
and then if the conviction happens after he takes office, what kind of uh, remedies can he do to keep himself out of jail? If Georgia comes back as a conviction, it'll be interesting. We're getting into some really weird territory, especially if, let's say, he gets elected president and before January 20th of 2025, Georgia comes back and convicts him as for his crimes and sentences him to a period of no less than 4 years in jail. What happens there?
yep.
What does happen there? Like, seriously, what happens there?
It is. We're going to be in the great unknown.
Yeah.
Oh,
Um,
the two smartest people I
and
know, and y'all are like,
the saddest
it's
thing is, like,
serious.
I mean, we're going to have an election in November that is between two just fundamentally flawed human beings.
Yeah.
The Joe is he's running out of time. Like, mentally he's there. Like, he's run out of time there, but like, physically he's running out of time too.
But also, I mean, it really is true that the media sat on the Hunter Biden story. Okay, I mean that is a legitimate story that they did not cover. Hunter
Sure.
Biden used his relationship as being the vice president's son, and it's worse because it's Ukraine, and we got plenty to talk about Ukraine here too.
Yeah.
And I'm a person who believes Ukraine should be defended with everything except for troops. But all these guys are victims of victims. We are all victims of a two-party system that insists on a figurehead that is considered infallible, and they won't let him appear to not be infallible.
Yep.
And that's the part that kills me. Like, why can't we have, like, Al Franken, for example, right? Al Franken did something wrong. He paid the price. He's not a senator anymore. He actually has commented that if he had fought it now in today's world as an immoral person, he would never have lost his seat.
No.
Nope.
And he's probably right.
No, I mean,
Absolutely right.
and I've heard people say, especially on the Democratic side, that Al Franken made a mistake by not fighting to keep his seat, because he would have kept his seat. I'm like, the next election, he would have been reelected in Minnesota. Like that, there's no doubt in my mind that he would have been reelected.
He would have gotten the nomination, and then he would have clearly not lost to a Republican.
Yeah.
And all he does is he says, look, I felt that our relationship was such that we could joke, we had a relationship where I could joke with this person that way. I was wrong. It is inappropriate to touch anybody without their consent. I mistakenly believed that I had consent. I clearly did not. I'm apologized for it, and I have since, worked to live to a higher standard. You say all that, and people would forgive him, be good to go.
Yeah.
But at least, there's an idea that somebody would say, I've done something that's so bad, or the party says he's done something so bad, we'll step away from him. I mean, I guess the Republicans did with, what's his name, Sanchez from New York, right?
Yeah, I mean, they did. There were some people that defended him and tried to keep him there because of the razor thin minority there.
Right. It's interesting too, though, because he irritated some Republicans because he was gay, so he didn't have the full support of the Republican Party. If he had been a good old boy, who knows what would have happened?
Yeah. I mean, look how much the Democratic Party rallied around Bob Menendez.
Yeah.
For years. Like, Bob Menendez has been corrupt as hell for at least known corrupt for at least 15 years, and they've continued to nominate him. And this time they finally have had enough, I guess. But we're in a situation where we rally around these awful people. I mean, look at hand job McGee there in Colorado.
Yeah.
Um, the Republicans love her. Same with MTG's crazy ass and crazy Karen energy there in Georgia.
MGT.
MTG, whatever.
MTG, right? Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
Right.
Not much
I always
gathering there.
think it's not Magic the Gathering, and so it's not MPG. And then I'm like, oh no, wait, it is Magic the
Magic the
Gathering.
Gathering, but there's not much gathering there,
Right.
especially in
No.
the mind.
Yeah, no Magic. Right. I mean, she's right. She's super crazy too. And every party's got their people like that who are
Oh, yeah.
crazy, and they are just.
And we're getting more
they're
and more.
turd. Right. Right.
We're
Exactly.
collecting them now.
Well, I mean, part of the way districts are drawn is to make sure that there are no unsafe districts, right?
Yeah.
The Democrats would rather have 20 safe districts than 18 safe districts and 2 moderate Democrat districts. No, wait, I said that backwards. Anyway, it's what we're leading to. But so when we get to this thing, so here's the thing. That's where it comes to me being the issue of, all right, so the New York thing, it's worth talking about it. It's a good case, stuff like that. This is not the thing that Trump is going to go to jail for. If I were him, I'm really surprised that they haven't pled this out. I mean, maybe that's bad with his. Then maybe they couldn't come to a plea deal, but I'm sure he could have come to.
Well, that kind of hits at his never surrender stuff, even though he surrendered
exactly
a few times.
Exactly right. I think he's too stupid.
Those t-shirts with the mugshot.
Yeah,
you surrendered to get that picture.
You literally surrendered, like you walked in, dude.
Right.
Sorry.
I do think that he is going to. I do think that all the stuff's going to add up.
Oh yeah.
I think that in many ways it's a death by 1,000 cuts. The
economy continues to be a piece of shit. We continue to have inflation. We continue to have let's pour a housing crisis on it.
Right.
Then November, it may not matter how many cuts he has. People are just going to be fed up with Joe Biden.
Yeah.
And it really is about the independents at this point. We know the Republicans are going to vote for Trump. We know the Democrats are going to vote for Biden.
Yep.
We don't know what the effect that Kennedy is going to have on this race, but I think the independents will break either way. If the economy starts seeming a little bit better and we see all these convictions or at least the trials and stuff like that, maybe the independents break to Biden.
Right.
But if not, then they're breaking to Trump and we're back in the dark place.
Right. And the problem is that when they get desperate, governments can do crazy things to manipulate the economy. Like make up a pandemic. No, but seriously, right? That'll get us banned. But seriously, I don't know. It's going to be some crazy shit. It's not out of the realm of possibility that Trump could win.
No, it's not. I think it's
especially with, we have to say it, a candidate that's going to be on in many states.
Many of the battleground states.
Yeah.
I mean, he only has to get 5,000 signatures in Pennsylvania. Pennsylvania was razor thin. If you go outside the cities of Pennsylvania, you don't see Biden signs. You see Trump signs.
I was just driving through there. Tons of Trump signs. Pennsylvania, Georgia's going to be razor thin again.
Yep.
Arizona and Colorado probably.
Not so much Colorado.
I'm going to be the one that turns Colorado. Don't worry.
All right, let's hope so.
That extra vote coming in.
Yeah. Colorado.
Charlie can vote.
There you go.
All right. Well, that's good. So I don't know. there's that stuff going on in the news. But then, as somebody brought up, Jasper brought up
Yeah.
the bill for Ukraine aid, Ukraine,
Well,
Israel, and Taiwan.
yeah, we had what, four bills passed yesterday by the U.S. House. Now they're not finalized; they have to go
Mhm.
through the U.S. Senate. Um, Bills with money have to originate in the House. So, um,
The power of the
what,
purse.
$61 million to Ukraine, like
Billion.
15, or I'm sorry, billion, billion, million. What's a few zeros between friends?
Exactly.
Um,
Yes.
uh, like 15 billion for Israel, or 20 billion, somewhere around that
Yeah.
amount, and then another few $1 million for Taiwan. Amongst that is also the TikTok divestment bill that got snuck
Uh-huh.
in
So
there.
stupid. Yeah.
Um, yeah, it looks like they'll all pass the Senate. They'll all go to the president. Um, it's going to be interesting, especially with the Ukraine aid bill, because it was not wildly unpopular, but it was more Republicans in the House voted against that bill than voted for it. It passed with the help of the Democratic Party. Now, in the House, where the margin is
Not
what,
just with
one or
the
two
help,
votes?
right? Like it was almost the entire Democratic Party.
Yeah, the entire Democratic caucus voted for it.
Right.
I think the entire, and for the Ukraine bill, there's a couple of the Israel bill had some Democratic defection. In fact, more Democrats voted against the Israel bill than the Republicans voted against it.
Right.
Um, but yeah, all three bills voted and passed overwhelmingly. Um, what's interesting to be seen, and it's not going to happen next week, but over the last few weeks, Marjorie Taylor Greene submitted a motion to vacate the speakership.
Yep.
There's been a couple other congressmen, including Thomas Massey, have have given their assent to that bill or that motion. Um, but they're not going to call for a vote on that one just yet. After they voted for all those bills, they took off for another congressional vacation. Um, at the floor of the steps of the Capitol, Marjorie Taylor Greene held a impromptu news conference and basically said, "I want them to go home and answer the people in their districts as to why they voted for this bill, the 100
Well,
100
now
or
what's
so
interesting
that
about
voted
it
for the Ukraine bill."
is that Speaker Johnson talked about that directly.
Yeah.
Uh, and he said, so he has a son who's entering the Naval Academy this year.
Yep.
And his direct quote was, "I am convinced that if we don't send bullets to the Ukraine now, we will have to send troops there later."
It's not it's not out of the realm of possibility. Like,
Let me just say that I think we could imagine a scenario in which he would be presented with extremely classified intelligence. And for people who watched the roll up to the war, the United States knew everything. They knew everything the Russians were saying. So our intel there is so good that, I would suspect that we implanted a microphone into one of Putin's teeth or something. It's the
yeah.
only way that it could be that good. So if they showed him classified intelligence where Putin says, as soon as we win in Lithuania, in Ukraine, we're going into Lithuania and Latvia next.
Yep.
I could see how somebody would say, I find that very compelling to say, don't let him win in Ukraine.
Well,
Because if you go to,
because you have to at that point, you have to put troops on the ground. If
oh, yeah,
if
those
Lithuania
are
and
NATO
Latvia
countries.
get hit because they're NATO
Yeah,
members, Article
yeah.
7 gets invoked immediately.
Well, and more than that, all the rest of Europe would bustle up at that point in time.
Oh yeah.
And we're not going to let Europe go to war without us. And
No.
then, it becomes, I think most people would agree that we would crush the Russians in a conventional war
Sure.
pretty quickly.
They are having problems with the Ukrainians.
Exactly.
I mean, like,
Well, now we talked about this a little bit too. If there's one thing the Russians have taught the world in military conflict that if you don't beat them, they will eventually get their shit together. That's happened every single time. Every
And they
single
are,
time Russia's been in a prolonged war, all they have to do is not
except for
lose,
Afghanistan.
except for Afghanistan, right? And that's a good point in that uh, Afghanistan may have been sort of unwinnable
Well, I mean,
without
we
sort.
discovered that on our own as well. Like
We
we
discovered
bug
that.
out and immediately it's back to Taliban.
There's an amazing book out. It's historical fiction. It's essentially written as a diary from about a soldier in Alexander's army when they invade Afghanistan. Same problem 2,000 years ago.
Oh yeah,
Afghanistan has always been the graveyard of armies.
yeah,
It's just a brutal place that people are impossible to fight against. It's they're like Arrakis. um,
yeah.
Maybe not that bad, but
Well, okay. So Craig asked, would China back Russia? I think China is going to go its own way,
yeah,
and depending on how weak Russia gets, I think China is going to wait. And if Russia, does go the conventional warfare route in Europe, they're going to take the western part of Russia all the way up to the Urals, and Russia really does not have any way other than nukes to stop it because there's
yeah,
just too many, and China doesn't have the force projection issues like they would if they wanted to attack the United States, trying to get all those troops over to the United
right.
States.
I can march.
All you have to do is pour across the border.
Yeah,
So I think China keeps its powder dry, waits to see what happens with Russia. But I think their aim is to take Western Russia because what do they have in Western Russia? A shit ton of oil. Or I'm sorry, Eastern Russia.
yep, and
Not the easiest oil to get out, but hey, with global warming, it's going to be a lot easier.
yeah, yeah, it's
Right.
pretty.
Right side, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I think that so that is why I think because let's also talk about the fact that when Speaker Johnson took office, he said there was no way there was going to be that he was going to approve money for Ukraine. So something happened. He became aware of something that made
yeah,
him change his opinion pretty drastically.
yeah. And I mean, look, we can say, he was shown something by U.S. intelligence. We know that we've been misled by U.S. intelligence in the past, so they
Sure.
may have been able to manufacture something that we got this communique from Moscow saying that they're going to attack Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia next. But it makes sense in the fact that Russia has always wanted to get, at least Putin has always wanted to get the band back together when it comes to the Soviet Union.
Right.
I mean, he's the guy that was weeping in Berlin when the Berlin Wall fell.
Yeah.
Like, there are some old grievances there that Vladimir Putin is really trying to, right the wrongs of the past, I guess. Jasper, your question about the NHL. It actually wasn't the NHL that removed the Russians. I think they didn't let them participate in this Four Nations tournament that they're going to be doing next year, but it was the International Ice Hockey Federation that removed the Russians from the international tournaments, so like the Olympics, the World Championships, and the World Under-20 Championships. All of those are
Russia lost the right to host F1 races.
Yeah. I mean, that's a lot of sports leagues have. In fact, the Russians aren't able to participate in the Olympics coming up in Paris. I think they're going to allow some athletes to march under a neutral banner. But Russia's also had all kinds of issues with doping and things like that that prevent them from participating in Olympic sports. So, it's 1-0 Nashville in the late game tonight here in the NHL playoffs.
Holy! Let's give a shout out to our friend who pointed out that the reason the Utah team can't be named the Miners is because we also have a team called the Predators, and you don't want to say it's the Predators against the Miners.
This is true. No, Well,
Yes.
we could talk about that a little bit later. The names
Yeah.
that the Utah have put
I,
out there.
I am familiar with if you give a mouse a cookie. But it's exactly right that Putin does want to get the band back together,
Yeah.
and he essentially is seeing how far he can go. And people, you know, Dave is old enough to remember that
Oh,
the real truth is that it was the Russians who beat the Wehrmacht. Okay, nobody else could have done it. And at the end of World War II, the Russian army was a formidable force. They had
yeah.
gotten that way through a shitload of attrition, and
Race to
they needed
Berlin.
American industrial might to arm themselves, but they were a very effective fighting force. The reason
And
that D-Day
people's
was so successful is because the best of the German troops were out on the Eastern Front.
Yeah, and people said that part of the reason why the United States nuked Nagasaki and Hiroshima was to
Exactly true.
prevent the Russians from getting in on the Pacific side.
I believe that as well because the
Yeah.
Russians were a real threat.
Yep.
1949, right, is a bellwether year for asymmetrical deterrence because China goes communist, the Russians detonate their first bomb, and things seem pretty bad at the time. I mean, now we
Yeah.
know. Well, I mean, we didn't know then, but now we really know communism sucks, right?
Well,
Communism is just
and
terrible at.
Russia did take some of Japanese territory. The Ryukyu Islands in the northern part of the chain were taken by the Russians, still held by the Russians. There's still
Right.
lots of negotiation about that that's still been going on, but the Russians want to hold on to those islands because it contains Japan, it contains China to an extent.
Yep. That's part of what we should do. Is part of the consequences for Russia to say, you know what, these islands are going back to Japan as part of the
Well,
Ukraine war
yeah, I
payment.
mean, I think that part of a Russian strategy or a post-Russia strategy would be to partition the country into different, smaller republics. Um, do I think that they'll get rid of Russia totally? No, but I think that you could um, have the eastern
Absolutely.
parts. I mean, that was part of the thing with Putin early on in his reign with the Russians was getting these constituent republics that were still under the Russian Federation to heal, to replace the governors that wanted a lot more autonomy with friendly guys, and so. Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the equation for a post-Putin Russia is breaking up the landmass into smaller republics. Now, the consequence of that is, can you control China? China will probably try and exert extreme amounts of influence on those countries once they become independent. And is it too late at that point? Did China already invade and take over that west or eastern half of the country?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
but as far as the aid bill goes, I don't have problems with the United States. Yes, I have problems with giving $61 billion of our tax money in just the raw numbers of our tax money. Yes, I do have problems with that. But here's the thing: in the early '90s, Ukraine had nuclear weapons. They had a ton of nuclear weapons because
Yeah.
that was the forward operating base for the Soviet military was Ukraine. And in exchange for getting rid of the nuclear weapons and giving them back to the Russians, Ukraine entered into an agreement with the United States and Russia to
Yep.
protect their territorial integrity um, because they're both nuclear powers. And Russia has not been holding up their end of the bargain. And really, we're not holding up our. I mean, we are now, but well, we will once we send over the additional $61 billion. But yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
an
No,
agreement that we had
because
made at one
because
point.
AJ,
Quick question. How many wars are our hands in?
Ooh,
Just
Lord
just just
mercy.
just a ballpark.
Well, we just threw money at three of them. So I mean, and one of them really is kind of a simmering,
So
not quite
at least
proxy war
three.
yet.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of places where American military aid in either the form of money or equipment is involved, I think it's all of them.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a
So how
place,
many countries are there?
Almost
238.
200.
Yeah. Um,
All right.
I think that, you know, there are plenty of places where American money is being wasted on military conflicts that we really could give two shits about. I do believe that if the Ukraine falls, the consequences for Europe are going to be dire.
I mean, I think for a lot of those other conflicts, it really is balance of power politics that we're
Yeah.
trying to counteract, whether it's Russia or China, counteract their influence in other countries. Like we've seen most of the Sahel region of Africa fall to the Russians and
Great
the
example.
Wagner group.
Yeah.
So I mean, but here's the thing: the balance of power politics will always lead to global conflict because it's the grasping for resources. It's the thing that made the 90s work to a certain extent was more cooperation about sharing and trading resources. Now we're just going to take and take and take, and that's going to
Well,
lead to conflict.
take and take and take and take, and give and give and give and give in the form of both military, but also, right? Africa is doing some incredibly dangerous work right now that people don't want being done in America. Is they're refining the gold from cell phones. That
Lithium.
is exactly all that shit, man. That is so dangerous. The fact, and we're just making the poor countries in the world do it because they're willing to do it for
Well, when they
$5.
have it, but they're getting. I mean, this being extracted. Africa has always been just a. I mean, it's kind of like West Virginia. They have so many mineral resources, so many resources that they could, if they were able to extract those resources and use them for their benefit, they would be fantastic. But the problem is they're being extracted, and money is being funneled to very corrupt leaders, and
Yeah.
you know multi-trillion-dollar
Yep.
accounts, and that they end up
Well,
having when they get
right,
deposed eventually.
right. Because well, and that's the other thing about it is that it's not really quite banana republic sort of thing, but there's so much money that is getting spent to influence companies, to influence politics in Africa, to things like that. This is where too, like, I mean, you think about like what's happening with vibranium and Wakanda, and
Gone forever.
sorry, you guys didn't laugh when I said vibranium, and so I was like, all right, I need
I
to
was
go a
like,
little
"Brady, wait, what?"
As soon as he said vibranium, I was like Captain America?
further. But yeah, Africa's getting screwed. But this is the part, right? And what we don't have is somebody like Nasser pioneering this path of not being
Pan.
on one side or the other. And you might think might want to go with China, but that's not really a great option for these countries. Maybe sometimes it's the best. I mean, here's the thing, right? Russia doesn't really have the ability to project economic power like China does.
Well, China. Here's the thing with China. China has the advantage in that they've got a lot of money.
Yep.
They're willing to buy off the appropriate people,
Yep.
and they're not pushing for certain things in return. And the United States does it to an extent, but there are some certain human rights things that the United States might chide a country about that China won't. China doesn't
Yeah.
care. Give me the lithium, give me the oil, give me the gold. That's cool.
And yeah, you don't want
Do
to
you,
educate
boo.
people, so that's fine with us.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, child labor in the Katanga region of well, not Zaire anymore, Democratic Republic of Congo, um,
Yep.
is is part of the price of that,
Yep.
and we're like, well, we need the lithium for our clean energy car batteries that aren't that clean when you think about it.
No, it's
Um,
it is it's a dilemma in the Ukraine. If the Ukraine falls, it puts first of all, we are through battle of attrition making a better Russian army than has existed in years. Uh, in fact, we saw when the Russians were in Syria, right? They thought, oh, look, we're really good. Look how successful we are in fighting against ISIS. We have an esprit de corps that's unbelievable. But as it turns out, no.
no.
But now, the troops who have survived in the Ukrainian war this far are competent.
To an extent, I mean, they're still conscripting and
Sure,
still.
sure. I mean, they are where. I mean this analogy only in terms of military, but they're sort of where the Union Army was, right? The Union Army in the beginning just got its butt kicked up and down, but it had superiority, and then finally they get Grant, who understands we win by using superiority. We win
Yeah.
by taking overwhelming casualties because we can. And the Russians are sort of getting there. And it doesn't, the Ukrainians have been hurt by the fact that we haven't given them any money in quite a while.
Yeah.
But they're also short on manpower, on human power, right? They're having problems having enough troops to bring them off the front lines. It's if I were Zelensky, I would probably be working at a solution right now, a diplomatic, some sort of ceasefire ending. I don't know if Russia would take it either. Maybe they will because
I think once the money comes, then you have a better hand.
yeah, exactly. I mean, once the Ukrainian counteroffensive finally begins with the money and the planes, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really interesting too because there is, Ukraine has hit Moscow a couple times now, right?
Yeah. I think Putin is also going to hold out until the election here because he thinks that if Donald Trump gets elected, that Ukraine gets cut off.
Yeah.
And that's very real. That's a very real possibility. I mean, I still think that Donald Trump wants what Vladimir Putin has, what Viktor Orban has in Hungary, the total control, the kind of republic where we have elections, but where we're going to control who the candidates are. He wants that. He sees those guys have it, and that's something. As a guy who's never been told no,
right?
That's something he wants, and and we see the people on the right really kind of grooming, especially his supporters, to accept this kind of leader because they're going to make it all right. They're going to be ultra nationalists and God bless the USA and all this stuff, and before you know it, why is he killing us? Well, that's because he doesn't have to. He's got all the power now. He's got the immunity. He's got the power. He can do whatever he wants to now. Yep. And if you say, "Hey, why are you doing this?" That's going to put you in the crosshairs.
Yeah, and that's where, like, you look at the vote on the Ukraine bill and the fact that it was, so close. That more Republicans voted against him than voted for him, and that's essentially the Republican Party referendum on Trump. It's a scary time.
It is a scary time, and I mean, I think as close as both houses are, whoever wins the election is going to win control of both houses of Congress. I think that's. You might see a situation where the Democrats win the White House and lose the Senate because there are too many seats that are there to defend. But I think if Trump wins, he gets a House, Senate, and it's already has the Supreme Court.
I'm not 100% sure about that because I do think that abortion wins a lot of blue seats in Congress.
I would hope so.
Yeah. I can only hope so.
I would hope so.
because I think that that's very much. I mean, because there's a lot of Republicans who don't want to campaign on pro-life. They're like, we've gone too far. This is going to hurt us.
Yeah,
I mean, I hope that's true.
but they don't want to go.
Because,
They don't want to put that out there because then they lose off the evangelical vote.
yeah.
That they don't want to go
Well,
any further.
right, exactly. But I mean, who are the evangelicals going to vote for? The Democratic forces of Satan?
Could.
I don't think so.
I mean, stranger things can happen. Well, it
They
could
might
be a
stay home.
situation where they end up going to the ballot, voting for, because we saw this with Barack Obama back in 2008. People went to the polls in droves, voted for Barack Obama. As soon as that vote was counted, they submit ballot and they walked out because
Yeah.
that's all they were there to vote for was Barack Obama. You might see that where Donald Trump wins, but may not get the coattails because the that particular member of the House or the Senate wasn't vociferous enough in their defense of being banning abortion at the moment of sex. Like
Yeah.
So, did you hear that, ladies? It's all up to us. Go vote.
yes,
Yeah.
go
Because
vote.
otherwise, you're going to keep miscarrying in the bathroom of the ER, talking to 911, asking what to do.
Yeah.
Because
No,
that's
I mean,
happened this week.
I think that that's very true. If you want to defend bodily autonomy, and women, it is women who have the burden of being pregnant. You would be crazy to vote for a Republican system. I mean, I recognize the
Yes.
fact that there are some women who are pro-life.
Sure.
You can be pro-life without saying my decision is the right decision for everybody. And hopefully
Yes.
there's more empathy around in the world for that than I don't know. I don't know if there is or not.
I don't know.
I don't either. And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
It is terrifying.
What's 538 say about this?
What?
538 wasn't. They're not.
It's
I mean,
early.
if I had to handicap it right now, I think Trump's got the advantage just because Biden has been such a weak candidate and the economy is kind of shitty.
Yeah. Yeah, they have
Especially
it.
because there's seats that are far too close.
Yeah. I wish I could say 538 just in general. Democrats 40. Fuck me.
What?
Democrats 44.7, Republicans 44.3.
That's actually been a little bit of a reverse because they've had the Republicans ahead on the generic ballot.
Yeah, Republicans have been ahead until about. Well, it really goes back and forth.
Well, I think part of it is the recent rulings, Supreme Court in Florida, the Alabama move on IVF. So I think that's helped them. Whether that energy can maintain between now, because it's a forever until the election, unfortunately. But yeah, we'll see how the trials go, see how the economy goes. This is going to be a really weird election.
538 has.
Year coming?
Yeah, here's the interesting thing though. 538 has. Do Americans have a favorable or unfavorable opinion of Donald Trump? Unfavorable 53%, favorable 42%. So that's a pretty big gap. But again, we fall into this electoral college issue of, just California and New York skews that.
Yeah. What about
because
Biden?
Texas, although Texas is safe red, Texas isn't like California, isn't as red as California is blue.
Oh, watch out, man. You're going to get people talking about all these illegals are voting because Texas is trending blue. And it's like, I think it's partly trending blue because they're importing a lot of people into the state.
It's trending blue because, as Larry Sharp said, it's not really red versus blue states. It's cities versus rural areas.
Rural areas.
Texas has 3 of the 10
Massive cities.
largest cities in the United
Yeah.
States. Okay. Houston is number 4. I think Dallas is number 8 and San Antonio is number 10. And,
Yeah.
you know, and
And
then
you've got
Austin,
a massively growing city. Yeah, Austin is
yeah,
about as blue as you
Austin
can get.
is, right. And Austin's hardcore liberal.
Yeah.
Austin's like
Yeah,
Keep Austin weird.
Massachusetts or,
but Beyonce says this ain't Texas. Like, I no, like, I don't think Texas should get to say shit to anybody, or Arizona either. If you go back to laws from the 19th century,
Oh
I
my
don't, I don't
lord.
think you'll get to trust your judgment on shit ever again. Ever again.
yeah. No, I mean, I
Go
think
to
that,
your barber for an abscessed tooth, because that's what you would have done. That's what you would have done then.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
just saying, if we're going to do it, all right, let's do it.
yeah,
That's exciting. How
it
many
is
limbs do
exciting.
I get to chop off tomorrow?
So in that space, it's an important election. People should find a way to make sure that Donald Trump doesn't get elected, in my opinion. And more than that,
Never vote Republican again.
vote bodily autonomy. If you can find a Republican candidate who is pro-choice, and there are some out there,
Yep.
I'm not going to say that's a worse choice. But I wouldn't vote for anybody. I wouldn't vote for anybody who's against bodily autonomy, because if you are not going to let women control their own bodies, you're halfway down the road to not letting anybody control their own bodies, which means mandatory vaccinations. Abortion and vaccination are exactly the same issue. Do you get to control your body, or does somebody else get to control your body? Honestly, abortion and gun control are the same issue. You know, somebody else thinks that something is a threat to society, a moral threat to society. Okay. Do they get to say, okay, we're going to make laws around you and what you get to do with this? It's not. People either have freedom or they don't. And there can't be a bigger freedom issue than bodily autonomy.
Yeah.
That means
Absolutely.
pro-choice on abortion, pro-choice on vaccination, pro-choice on everything. Pro-choice
And
on
again,
cannabis.
you don't have to partake. That's the thing that a lot of people are like, well, I don't want to, I don't
Then
want an
don't have
abortion.
an
Well, don't
abortion.
have one. I don't
Then
want
don't have
cannabis.
one.
Then don't take part in cannabis.
Yes.
Your religion limits you. It places morals
No obligation upon anyone else.
obligations. Yeah, obligations on your behavior, not my behavior, unless I happen to be in the same religion. That's I don't want your acceptance. Just the tolerance of you live your life and do what you want to do. Don't try and put your crap on me.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, this is going to be an extremely weird election. It's going to be the temperature on the American public right now is very high, and it's going to remain that way, especially among the hardcore partisans. Like for me, I think when it gets to November, I'm not going to vote in the presidential election because, frankly, I live in West Virginia. Like I could have 10,000 votes and give them all to Joe Biden. It wouldn't make a difference at all.
Right.
Like I think if Chase gets the nomination for the Libertarian Party, then we've got something to talk about there as far as voting. I think I'm just going to skip the presidential line, go straight to governor, where Erica Kalenic is running, and I'll definitely vote for her. And then just kind of pick and choose the people I think are not going to fuck up too much. That's what voting has gotten to me at this point. Like,
I love that. Like we have to go through such a process to get a job, right? Such a process. We have to fill out the application. We have to have the right LinkedIn profile. We have to have the right, the resume has to be eye catching, but not too flashy because you don't want to be getting too much attention. You have to be a team player, and then you have to interview, and you go through the phone interview, and then the in-person interview, and then you go through all the orientation and all the stuff. And yet we have people like Marjorie Taylor Greene that are in charge of making decisions for people. Like, why are our choice for candidates just stupid or idiot? Like, I don't understand. I don't understand where
Well,
that
because
started.
you've got two
But if you
parties
look
that
back,
don't
it's like,
you don't have to and we've kind of gamified this whole thing, but you've got two parties that really don't have to do all that much work to get on the ballot. They've already got their ballot access. And then everyone else has to work their ass off just to get on the ballot. All the money and resources that
Yep.
just to have their
uh-huh.
name placed on the ballot. But these two parties now have, I mean, essentially with the rise of Trumpism and all that stuff, even before that, it's become like who can say the most outlandish stuff to get noticed.
Yep.
It's a reality show.
Yeah, it is a reality show, and these are the people getting elected, especially in these seats where we've gerrymandered it to death, and there's no chance that the opposition's going to take that seat, and many times don't even
Look at
run
you,
anybody.
Tennessee.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and they're whether it's a Democrat here or a Republican there, they're safe, and there's no consequence to them saying stupid stuff like that. We may lose Hansy McGee there in Colorado because she's having to move out of her district and go to another district. Um, but Marjorie Taylor Greene's safe. Like there's no chance they're going to dislodge her from that unless she gets a credible challenge from the Republican Party. But for the most part, your primaries are your elections in most states, and when the party that has that seat doesn't put up a primary challenger, there's no election.
Yep.
And I'll
Well,
not anything for not speaking as Jasper's dad or anything, but I will say not voting, and at least the way I'm doing it, not voting in that election, it is a vote. I'm voting not to reward either party for a poor choice.
oh, and let's be clear. It's not that you're not voting. You're actually blanking the ballot.
Yeah,
Because if you don't show up to vote, they assume you don't care. But if you blank the ballot, they know that you went there and you didn't vote.
yep.
And that's a statement as well that gets counted. Because every single ballot gets counted, whether you leave it blank or whatever. They know that that's your
It sounds dirty when you
disaffection.
say blanking the ballot.
Mm.
Sounds like something from the match game, like
Maybe,
Blanket.
or the honeymoon game.
maybe the ballot should have been coming on to me. um, but in terms of thinking about what actually statistically matters, the Republicans and Democrats count every ballot because they want to know, how do I get that vote next time, or how do I not get that person to vote against me next time? Can I suppress their vote? Can I coerce their vote? Can I convince their vote? All of
Can
those
I
things.
make
But
them
that's why
fear?
every vote for libertarian matters, because even if you don't win, if a libertarian gets 5% in an election, Republicans and Democrats start saying, geez, I wonder if I could get some of that 5% by calling for legalizing cannabis or adopting some other libertarian issue. Every vote really does get counted. So it's worthwhile to go and vote for the candidates that support your views,
Yeah,
so that
and talk to
otherwise
your
people,
candidates.
yeah,
Talk to your candidates, like the local ones. Talk to them and tell them that you want my vote. Here's what you got to do to get my vote. I'm not just
right,
going to give it to you because you have a pretty picture on a placard that comes in my mail every 2 days. Like you got to give me something to vote for. I'm tired of look. If I was in Pennsylvania, I might consider voting for Biden just because I don't want Trump as president. But I'm tired of voting against people. I'm not that vote wouldn't be for Biden. It would be against Donald Trump.
yep,
And I've gotten to the point where I just don't want to give people a vote because I'm voting against the other guy. But if you give me a credible candidate to vote for, I'll support you all day. I've got some credible candidates that I like here in the local area that I'm supporting, and I'll be voting for them and supporting them either with dollars or walking districts for them or whatever. It's just, you've got to get out there and talk
Yeah.
to the
AJ had her
politicians.
hand up.
Yeah, I have a question. A couple of weeks ago, you got onto me and said that voting NOTA is rude to the volunteers at the. How is that different?
So if you write, and I didn't say no to, I said writing in a candidate. So writing in a candidate, writing in anything, that causes them to sit there and have to count them. Okay. That's if somebody's on the ballot, that's a significant thing. If you can have a write-in campaign that actually gets significant things, fine. Do your write-in campaign. I don't know of any write-in campaign except for Lisa
Murkowski.
Murkowski.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's ever any done any significant numbers. Uh, if you have a credible campaign, get on the
Which
ballot.
is remarkable because Murkowski is not the easiest name to spell. And for
So,
a lot of places, that if you misspell it by one letter, they're not
oh, they
counting it.
tried. So my friend is married to Lisa Murkowski's daughter, and he was a poll worker, and they tried to disqualify things. The I is not dotted. Um,
Yeah.
they misspelled Murkowski. They put in MER, stuff like that. So yeah, it was a lot of bullshit. Uh,
Yeah.
it, Writing in nonsense on your ballot, that just hurts the poll workers. If you have an
Well, it
organized
depends.
writing campaign,
There are a lot
uh,
of there are a lot of places that won't count write-ins unless they are the margin. If
right,
there's the margin of the vote, or that the number of write-ins are significant enough that there's a possibility they could win the election.
exactly, and that's an interesting point too. If you write on your ballot is probably going to be put aside, depending on where you live, and not counted at all because you made it harder for them to process your ballot. So it's just
I've been
unless
able
you have
to
an
type
organized
in
writing
NOTA,
campaign,
so I'm not really sure what you're talking about.
writing in Nota. I mean, writing in Nota
I've
doesn't.
typed it in. I haven't written on anything.
Okay,
You're talking
well,
about written ballots. I'm not
The
talking about that. I'm talking about.
computerized.
so if you blank the ballot, right, the machine counts that 100%. They know the number of ballots that were cast because those all go through the machine. If you blank it, they know that you didn't vote for the Republican or the Democrat.
Now, should
What?
every election have NOTA in it? Absolutely.
I mean, every election does have Nota in it.
No, I mean, should it like how we apply it in the Libertarian
That's
Party that
being mean. I
if
can't do that.
NOTA wins, then
Oh,
both
then those
candidates are
candidates can't run anymore?
disqualified. Yeah, and then they can't run anymore. If NOTA was on the presidential ballot this time, I got a feeling that NOTA would win.
Right. I think you're
That would
probably
be
right.
beautiful.
Actually, I don't think that's true because I think that the Trump fanatics, I think that that's a 25% number. And as if you went it round by round, if my choices were, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, I would. I think there's enough people out there that are just so over the fact. I don't know how the this is going to impact turnout,
Yeah.
but the choice is not great.
No, I'm going to
Yeah.
vote by mail this year.
So that's another thing I would love to talk about is voting by mail. Not every place has it, or they make it extremely difficult to vote by absentee. Honestly, I would rather have all mail-in ballots and allow me to sit at my kitchen table or on my couch and cast the votes for all of these offices because you almost make the election like a pop quiz or a test
Yep.
of some sort of memory to remember because most of the big general elections it's not just the president. You've got your state house, state senate. You've got a
Ballot
raft of
questions.
constitutional amendments. You've got
Yep.
judges.
Right.
Like we're
I
going to have a
would
ton of
much
judges.
prefer that we have a scenario where, I get mailed my ballot and then somebody gives me $20 and I give it to them.
Well, but yeah, I mean, but you're able to
Yeah,
sit there and
yeah,
research each of the races because it's, you want your electorate to be somewhat informed. Now,
yeah.
I'm sure that there's still going to be people that are going to like just check the vote all Republican, but you still have other races you
Oh,
got to vote for, even if you
I,
do that, because there are
I actually
nonpartisan
think there are
races.
people who will sell the ballots too. I think that there'll be a real market for that.
Sure.
Um, I don't know that that's worse though than our current system.
Yeah.
So I personally like the idea of mail-in ballots. I mean, I actually think the correct thing to do is that we are close to. This came up at the Libertarian Convention in Maryland as well, and we've been talking about it along the line. Electronic voting is going to be better
So blockchain
soon.
type.
Yeah,
Yeah, West Virginia
blockchain.
does that. We do blockchain voting
Yeah.
um, for overseas military and handicap.
Well,
So
the other thing that is needed to make it work is you can have anonymous voting, but you have to be identified to be able to vote. And I feel pretty strongly about that because otherwise, what is your election worth? If
yeah,
you don't know that the voters who are voting are registered voters, what are you counting? So that's my stake on that. I personally think where facial recognition is right now, you can do that. And
facial, you got thumbprint stuff. I mean, there are
yep,
ways to validate all of this stuff.
yep,
Um, I mean, heck, when we were having the Iraqis vote after Saddam Hussein fell, I mean, everybody had their
yep.
thumbprints with the purple ink on it. They had to stamp on the ballot.
All right.
Um,
Before we get into the quiz, I've got this great talk brewing in my head.
oh,
I
no,
don't I
don't
don't have it
worry.
done yet, and like it's going to be like a 30-minute talk, but this is how it starts off, and it's mainly meant for a libertarian audience. I say, you know, the last year has seen things that I don't think any of us thought we'd ever see. Sometimes things go wrong. We look at society and things are changing. We're like, how can that happen? But last year, and actually in the last few months, something's happened that I think most people think is so wrong that it's almost a generational division. I'm talking about the remake of Roadhouse. Now, anybody who's seen the first Roadhouse knows that's an amazing movie. And I'll have a slide come up here of Patrick Swayze doing the Tai Chi thing in Roadhouse. And I'll say, look, this is unobjectively one of the most beautiful men to ever be on the screen. And I put Jake Gyllenhaal, Paul there. And I'm like, no, this is not good. Okay, let's talk about the story. Let's talk about all the things that happen. Roadhouse is a classic. But what we don't get as the older people, the generation that saw the first Roadhouse, potentially in the theater, is that there are some things in there that didn't age. There are no people of color in the original Roadhouse movie. There is, I don't even want to say sexist talk. There's anti-LGBT talk and things that we would say are not appropriate anymore. The new movie's got a lot of stuff wrong with it. Not the least of which is it's a movie that didn't necessarily need this revision on it, but it did need to be retold. And so libertarians were sort of in that same place where there was a lot of stuff that happened before and it was awesome. But there are a couple things in there that we have to hear what this next generation is saying. So you can't say that anymore. You can't do these things anymore. There's got to be, a medium, a collection, some way that we come together to say, I don't like the new Roadhouse, but maybe it isn't the worst thing that's ever happened to theater. So that's where I am. That's the
So
5 minutes I've got in my head.
Yeah. What is with the remakes? Like, I went to the theater when I watched the Dune. Dune is also a remake,
Yep.
but like everything there, the Fall Guy. They're doing a Fall Guy remake of the
Yep.
Fall Guy. They're doing remake of. I don't know if it's a brand new version, but at least the preview made it look like a lot of the old tropes of the original Twister movie. It's called Twisters,
Yeah.
but it looks like the same damn movie.
It's
Um,
well, it's because of the investment, right? If you have something that you know just based on the previous following is going to do $50 million in business, that makes it easier to get greenlit.
I just don't. I don't. I really don't want to watch that movie. Like
No, but
it just
you know,
makes me mad.
they don't want you to watch it, but this is the politics. So, I mean, I've sold a few screenplays. Part of what has to happen is you have to find a way to say this movie will at least make sure that nobody loses their money, loses their shirt on it. And so that gets you a studio to buy in. And so I can go to the studio and say, like, for example, one of the screenplays I sold was called Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. I'm just kidding. I didn't write
Like, what?
that. uh, it's,
What?
but I could go to them and I could say, okay, let's think of this movie and let's think of a sequel to it. Like, why is there another Ghostbusters coming out? For one thing, the principals are all around. But you know what? Let's do a follow up to some of the classic Hitchcock movies, right? Or maybe they're too far away. Let's say 3 Days of the Condor, or what's a really popular movie? Godfather 5, something like that. Let's do another Rocky movie. Those things, I make that pitch. Somebody's like, okay, that movie will make money. I don't care what the hell's in it, what the crap is in it, or anything like that. I mean, there were like 6 scary movies, right? Hello, host.
That was me.
Mm.
We'll talk about that in a moment.
Okay, yeah. Well, go ahead and go with that. But that's why they're remaking movies. In this one, like
I think they're just
the
out of
Roadhouse
ideas.
movie, the first Roadhouse movie is really it's interesting because I like seeing it as a young person. I loved it because of the violence. And that woman who never did anything else, but she was really good in that movie. And then seeing it later on, I sort of got to understand, like, here's something that I didn't get until much later in life was I used to think of Patrick Swayze as a joke. I'm like, oh, this guy did all these terrible movies. All these movies that I think are terrible, Dirty Dancing,
People love.
a beloved movie, right? And having watched it again, I now understand, it's, among
You
the
don't.
most romantic movies there is.
You don't
Ghost,
put Dirty Dancing in a corner.
put Dirty Dancing in a corner. Ghost, even like Donnie Darko.
Yeah.
Swayze's got a great role in that. He's in Rumblefish too, or is it The Outsiders? Maybe it's in both of them. But
He's in both of them.
is he in both of them? So that's
Yeah.
the guy, just a phenomenal career. If
Gone
you
way
haven't
too
watched the
soon.
Netflix behind the scenes making of Dirty Dancing, I recommend it to anybody. Anyway, so I didn't think
Yeah.
Roadhouse should be remade, but I did watch the Gyllenhaal one, and I don't think it's a good movie, but I appreciate that it appeals to this generation more than the old Roadhouse does.
Sure. So I put a link in the chat. This is a GoFundMe. Former guest of the show, phenomenal human being, Michelle Lavoie, had a
Yes.
massive fire.
You know,
She had just gotten out of a bad marriage and was getting on her feet in this new place. And the apartment caught fire. She actually had to escape jumping off a second floor balcony with nothing but her phone. She lost a couple of pets in the fire,
it's
lost
terrible.
everything. This goal originally was 5,000. I blew past it. It's now at 10,000, and they've raised 7,500 for it. But Michelle is a phenomenal human being. She's put out so much good stuff into the world that she deserves everything that's coming her way. whatever you can find in your heart to donate to Michelle. Greatly appreciated because
Yeah.
definitely needed at this point. This is to help her get herself and her child back on their feet after this devastating fire. And
Yeah.
um,
It's one
she
of
may
those
have
things.
insurance, but it's going to take a while for insurance to settle out. So she's going to need she has the immediate need, one to get all of, brand new stuff,
Yeah.
clothes,
Well, but
just,
also when you have nothing and you have no place to live, okay, you don't have any place to cook. You don't have a
yep,
refrigerator to store food in. You don't have a place
yep,
to sleep. And so all of those things, if you're lucky, you can rely on family somewhat for some of those things, but you don't want to be a burden and stuff like that. And so you just have all these expenses that add up.
yeah,
So if people can find a way, and if it's $5, when a worthy cause comes through, if you can give it $5, that means something because it means something about you that you're the person who says, I'm not going to look the other way on this one. I'm going to give it $5. Maybe you can give it $25. Whatever it is,
absolutely.
find a way to be that person that does this thing. I'm another person who I will tell you that Michelle has just had a bad turn of luck. And I'm a big believer in karma. This is a scenario where you can give some money. If you can just give $5, it means $5 and make a difference. So please
Yeah,
go to that GoFundMe link. GoFundMe. I'm going to
jeez.
say it. B4216827. Just so
There you
that
go.
AI can pick up on that later on.
And also, don't
Um,
forget about AJ's fundraiser to get the hell out of
another one,
Tennessee.
guys. If we can get AJ there, it's a really big deal. It makes a difference for her and her family. And AJ is doing everything she can on this. She is, you'll excuse me for saying, busting her hump, but she is working so hard to make this happen. And it's a thing where not just $5 makes a difference, but knowing that somebody else cares makes a difference too. And if you
Yep,
can add your name to that list saying, we know that you're doing the right thing for your family. We know that you're being a good mom. We know that you are trying to make the world a better place by raising great kids. Why wouldn't you want to tell somebody that? And if
yep.
it only costs you $5, then do it. So
I'm so
please,
tired. You just made me cry.
no, you are doing all those things, AJ.
Yeah, you
You
are
you are an
You-
amazing woman. You are
badass.
a great example, uh, not just for your kids, but for the people who are on the show who watch us, who see that if you want to change your life, you make the decision and you change it, and then you
Yep,
don't let anything stop you. You just keep working until
absolutely.
you do it. So, I you're certainly inspirational to me in a lot of things that I do. There are times that I think, man, AJ's kicking ass at this thing, and I am bitching about this thing that's not particularly hard, and she's doing the hard shit. So thank you for being that inspiration in my life.
And we can't wait to see you out in Colorado.
Yeah,
Oh, I'm so excited.
yeah.
Y'all ready for the quiz?
Let's do the quiz, baby.
Let's do the quiz. Let's quiz it up. Hold on just a second. Let me share it.
Let's Quiznos. I've never eaten at a Quiznos.
Quiznos are it's just nasty.
Yep.
Um,
Oh my God! Did you
remember
see
the
the thing
ad?
about all the lies that Joe Biden told the other day? He made
Something
this.
about a cannibal thing.
Yeah, yeah,
What?
you're right. Exactly. Something that like his
Like his
father was
uncle
eaten
was
by a
eaten by a
cannibal.
cannibal.
His
Like,
father
what
was eaten
the?
by a cannibal. Then he said that he's never made $400,000 a year in his life, which is actually his salary as president, and his wife makes more than that. And then what was the other thing? It's just three completely stupid ass things. He's lost it.
Yeah, it's just
Hmm.
my hope. My hope for the future of democracy, and I don't imagine that they're going to come up with anything better, but
Yeah.
at least someone younger, is that when we get to the convention for the Democrats, they that Joe has a moment where he says, "Yeah, I can't do this," and throws the
That
convention
would be
into.
better.
Oh,
So
it
let
would
me
be
ask,
must see TV. It would be so compelling to see a
right,
contested
right, right,
convention.
exactly. And honestly, I think it would capture a lot of imagination too.
Yeah.
So who would you want him to say, I'm stepping aside for this person?
Jared Polis.
I
Hmm.
would like, I mean, I would, unfortunately, she's too polarizing, but my respect for Hillary Clinton has risen significantly in the
She's
last
got the
6
same
months.
issue though. I mean, she's
She has the same issue. It can't be
she's
her. She
old.
can't win.
She's old. Yeah.
Yeah, she's old. I mean, she's not old compared to these fuckers, but
I
she's
think she's
certainly
about their
old.
same age. I thought she
Is she?
was around the same age as Trump.
I don't know. But so I would like to see Pete Buttigieg. I think he would be.
I wouldn't mind Buttigieg. He's had kind of a rough run at the Secretary of Transportation, but
He
um,
has.
I
I
think
don't know who else.
he'll
I think
take
it has
heat
to be
from that. Well, he'll take heat from that train derailment and the response to that, and some other stuff, the infrastructure
all the
failing,
Boeing
and
stuff. They blame
yeah,
him.
yeah.
Um,
So
all
yeah,
right,
I
let's
think
do
the all right. So we got context clues. We got the president and his wife. We got some lady looking concerned. I don't know who that is.
I don't know who that is either.
And der Gruppenführer.
I like her glasses though.
Huh. Sorry.
All right.
All right. Question number 1. The flame for the 2024 Olympics was lit this week. Where did the ceremony occur? Italy, Greece, France, or the United States?
Wow. See,
I know
before you
this
showed us the choices, I thought we were going to have to guess where in Paris it happened.
It wasn't in Paris.
It wasn't in Paris. Where was it?
Yeah, the Olympic flame is always lit in Greece.
Shut up.
Oh,
It's always
I
lit in
would have got
Greece
it
and then
wrong.
brought to the country,
And
and
then it
then
runs
they do
to.
do
Okay.
the run because
Interesting.
it's the main flame there at the IOC, or at least in Greece. But yeah.
can
All
I
right.
ask
Well,
a dumb
Oh, and
question?
let me look at the chat and see if we got anybody
yes.
throwing.
AJ, ask your question.
Okay, so there was an Olympics in Atlanta.
Yep.
What did they
Yep.
do? What did they do with the flame? You can't run across. Like,
No, they fly it.
what did they do?
It's flown because I mean they've had it all over the world. So
They
it's
fly the torch.
it's in a special container and a yeah.
I want to know who's in charge of designing the container.
I don't know.
I want them to make me a person.
I like that Chuck's got me vouching for Hillary Clinton.
Uh
It's
oh.
fair. I tell you, Chuck, if you watch Hillary on The View on October 9th, man, she
Yeah.
nobody
That's
ever
just-
called her stupid, right? Nobody ever called Hillary Clinton stupid. And
No, I wouldn't call her stupid.
yeah, I
Corrupt a
mean,
little bit.
right, sure. Authoritarian, all these other things. Yeah. But
We've been corrupt.
yeah, you look at, who are the first. It's time for us to elect a really smart president again. I don't think we've had a smart president since. I mean, Bill's not an idiot. Exactly, she was a Goldwater girl.
I don't think Obama was dumb by any stretch.
Obama wasn't dumb, but like George Bush Sr., that guy was smart.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to see
Junior
a
not so
smart
much.
president. Hillary, yeah, Junior not so much. I mean, it's the cocaine.
He just really didn't pass that along.
But
Hillary,
somebody was showing some stuff from Bush back in the day, and you're like, God, those were simpler days. Like even, I mean, I absolutely hate the Patriot Act and all the other stuff that happened after 9/11, but I
right.
like he made speaking mistakes, but I didn't feel like some of those speaking mistakes would end up
He's
in World War
dyslexic
III.
though, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can't make fun of a dyslexic person for misreading his teleprompter.
Sure.
I mean, his classic, right? My favorite one is, I know how hard it is for some of you to put food on your children, which is just great.
It's a great visual.
Exactly.
All right, question number 2. Which extreme weather event disrupted airport operations in Dubai? Bye. Dust storms, heat waves, heavy rains,
Dude,
or
did you make a
hailstorms?
Backstreet Boys joke there?
I did.
Wow. It's the desert.
It is the desert, but you'd be surprised.
Oh, I'm like, I could be completely wrong. I would have guessed dust storms, but it's not that, huh?
No,
I think it's heavy rains.
it is. Well, it's either heavy rains or hailstorms. I'm not sure which one, but there were enough
I feel like
rains
there was
there that,
flooding.
No. Tom says heavy rains too.
yeah. But yeah, there was tons of water. They don't have the best
Wow, look at that.
system to move that
Mhm.
water out. So
Yep.
yeah, there was lots of flooding
Heaviest
nearby.
rainfall in 75 years. That's crazy.
And remember, like
Thank you,
Dubai, I mean,
Janice.
this is not quite the hot season there, but regularly gets above 110
Right.
degrees there. Could you imagine the humidity?
They're
Oh,
going to have a mold problem like nobody's business.
swamp.
Yep.
You.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, question number 3. Um, where is former President Donald Trump facing his first criminal trial? New York City, Miami, Chicago, or Washington, D.C.? This one's an easy one.
Yeah, we talked about this.
Yeah.
New York.
So the guy that set himself on fire, that was an interesting story in and of itself. It's because you have all this press there from the courthouse, and he chose to make his stand about he had like a bunch of conspiracy theories, but his main one, at least on the flyers, was about New York University. And so he sets himself on fire, and then they start grilling the police guy coming out, like, why, why was the response so many? Like, you had how many press people were sitting there just watching it happen? And why are you grilling the police people about not responding quick enough? You were there. You could have done something, man. This wasn't a great week for the press when it comes to the whole Trump trial. Janice got the question as well.
I have a
Question number
breaking
4.
libertarian story.
Uh-oh. What
Bill
broke?
Redpath has announced that he is running for treasurer.
What?
Yep.
Okay.
Pretty exciting.
Good stuff. There's some good folks running.
Yep.
Who's running for chair? Oh yeah, Mark Rutherford. Mark Rutherford.
Right. Mark
Mimi
Rutherford, now
Robson.
Mimi for thing, Bill for treasurer, and Sean Levasseur for secretary.
Ah, very nice. Please, for the love of God, win that secretary race. All right, question number 4. Which automaker announced it will cut around 14,000 jobs? Tesla, Ford, Honda, or BMW? We already got an answer from the crowd. Janice is with it.
Yes.
Tesla is set to cut more than 10% of its global staff of 140,000. CEO Elon Musk wrote an email to company employees. Musk attributed planned job cuts to the need for cost reductions and increasing productivity. I'm not sure productivity is going to increase if you cut a bunch of people. But,
Yeah.
what am I to say there? All right, question number 5. Which city is constructing the world's largest wildlife crossing over a busy freeway? San Francisco, Denver, Portland, or Los Angeles? I don't know this one.
It can't be Denver or LA.
I don't think it can either.
It's
I don't
got
think
to
it can
be.
really be San Francisco either.
Yeah, it's got to be Portland just based on those things.
Oh.
Janice says Los Angeles, and she
she's in
lives in
California.
California.
And she's in California.
So I used to laugh at this because there was like a meme talking about, and these land bridges going over highways, and I thought,
Yeah.
well, that's like animals don't read street signs, but animals learn,
Right.
and they're very instinctive. So if they know that there's a safe way to get across the road, that they'll eventually go there. Now the thing that people will use against it is that predators will stand there at either end of the bridge to make hunting easier, but still getting across the highway is a lot better.
But I think that Janice is right, because if it's going to be the largest, LA's got that stretch where it's 8 lanes on each side. That would be a big ass wildlife crossing.
And it's correct.
All
So
right.
you see how this little land bridge goes.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
yeah, is it going to stop them completely? No. Um,
But it's something.
yeah, it's something. It's going to save some lives, and that's good. All right, question number 6. Which professional sports league unveiled their 2024 draft class this week?
Too
NFL,
much.
NBA, WNBA, or MLB?
Nobody's getting this wrong. AJ, what is it?
What'd you say?
That's a WNBA.
Exactly right.
Ding, ding, ding.
If it's a sports question, we go to AJ.
That's right. She knows all. Question number 7. President Joe Biden and First Lady Dr. Jill Biden released their joint tax return this week. Around how much did the Bidens earn in 2023? 200,000, 600,000, 2 million, or 6 million?
I think it's 2 million. But it might be 600,000. What I thought I read was that Biden earned 400,000 and she earned 600,000. But maybe it's
I don't know if does the First Lady draw a salary?
No, definitely not. But she's still working as a physician.
Yeah.
Or not as a physician, as
an
whatever.
Educational doctor. Yeah.
And she gets speaking fees and stuff like that too.
Yeah. So anybody in the audience knows. I'm leaning towards the 200 or 2 million.
Yeah, that sounds more likely to me.
Oh, Janice 600,000.
That was my first.
I'm inclined to go there.
All right, let's go.
She did us right on the Los Angeles answer. Let's do it.
600,000.
Yay! All right.
Wow.
I would have led us astray with 2 million.
Yeah.
So they made 620,000 in 2023 for the joint tax return released on Monday. The deadline for most Americans to file their taxes.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk about that. Wow.
Right. Well, it's interesting. This was my best year ever. I owed $11.
Nice.
Very proud of myself.
All right. Question number 8. Which landmark was engulfed in a massive fire this week?
I know this.
Copenhagen Stock Exchange, Tower of London, Sydney Opera House, or the Taj Mahal?
It was. I will give you a hint. It has something to do with chewing tobacco.
Copenhagen.
That is correct. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really it's very sad. There was a lot of art inside.
Yep, the old stock exchange, huge disaster because it's 400 years of cultural history that is in flames. That is sad.
Did you know, to bring this up, when the Nazis occupied Denmark, one of their first edicts was that all Jews had to wear a yellow armband. And so that day, the next day, when the king came out for his ride, he wore a yellow armband, and soon everybody in Denmark did.
That's awesome.
Just thought I'd mention that.
All right, question number 9. Which university president was grilled on Capitol Hill this week over anti-Semitism on campus? We just saw, I think that was the picture we saw.
Yep.
The lady we don't know.
Yes.
Columbia, Yale, Cornell, or Stanford?
It's the New York City one.
I think it's Columbia.
New York City.
Story this week that a rabbi that is attached to the university has basically said that the Jewish students should go home and no longer give their money to the university, essentially.
Yeah. I actually would take it a step further. The students should go home. The Jewish faculty should go home. And the Jewish donors should go home. Because it's ridiculous what's happening now. Because, I mean, free speech is one thing, but attacks and assaults are not okay.
And here's the thing for me, when it comes to all of this, is what does shouting at some college kid going to their class or walking along the streets of New York. What does that do for the situation in Palestine and Gaza? Does that benefit anybody? Does that save anyone's lives? Does that change anyone's heart?
I I I,
To
I think that it does, in that it silences people. It takes away their visibility.
Sure,
And there are a lot of there are a lot of people who are matter of factly, like, there was a uh, tremendous thing, and I can't remember if it was on CNN or Fox or whatever, but an Israeli soldier sat down and put up a thing and said, "I just got back from Gaza. I'm IDF. Ask me anything." Of course, a lot of people are mad, but several people sat down to have real conversations with him. And he calmly explained a lot of things. Like, for example, if Israel is going to bomb an area, every cell phone in the area rings. And it says, this area, if you're seeing this text message, if you're getting this phone message, your area is going to be bombed in 15 minutes. So get out. And people are like, oh, I didn't know that.
I mean, it does beg the question of where do they go?
You only have to move about 500 yards in 15 minutes.
Oh, okay,
Right? You just have to
I,
get out of the area right now. It gives the address of where the bombing is going to happen. It says we're going to drop bombs at this street address right now. And even before the Gaza, Israel always did that. They never bomb any place without
I
telling
knew that they
everybody.
did leaflets. I knew they
Yeah,
did things like that. I didn't know about text messages and stuff like that.
yeah. I mean, that's the benefit of the cell phone system.
Sure.
But if you don't have a cell phone, anyway. So, but so this person is calmly explaining that, and he talked about other things too. He talked about the fact. He said, I personally saw a thing where there was a sniper shooting at us with 3 children next to him. Sort of hostages in the room, not allowed to leave while the sniper is shooting at them. And there are a lot of people who don't want to even have that part of the truth told. And so I think that's what
There is too much passion on both sides of this issue.
right. And
Eh,
right, exactly. And when you have you're saying, why do the people do this though? Why do they get that passionate about it? Is to prevent the impartial conversations. The people, and I'll tell you that I had a conversation with Dean Ahmed uh, at the convention. Many people know Dean, famous libertarian, and also a Muslim. And we disagree about what's going on, but we had a very calm conversation about it, and we got to a point where he said, we're not going to agree past this part of it,
sure.
and we were able to sort of leave it at that point in time. But I came away with an appreciation for his point of view, and he came away with an appreciation for mine. That's what we'd like to have happen. There are a lot of people, I think, who are afraid, and I think that we can call this out and say that this is a one-sided thing, right? You don't see many instances of Palestinian students getting harassed by Jews on campus or pro-Israel supporters. Um, there are people who want to block the same rational discussion. Like, if you try to talk about the state of LGBT rights in Gaza, forget it. You are going to be overwhelmed. You're going to be shouted down. No, we're not talking about that. You can't pink wash this, blah, 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 blah. But I mean, that's a very simple fact. Why is it not relevant? And so there are people who want to prevent rational conversations. They only want you to know babies are being killed. The fact is, there's been so much killing on every side that the only thing that we can do is have a common rational discussion about it. Because if you say that the point isn't there for discussion, that there's no room for discussion, then this war will continue until one side wins and one side loses.
Yeah. I mean, we've gotten to a point where that's all we have left right now. Like, you've got
Yep.
to have these calm, rational. And it's not just Israel and Gaza. I mean, it's
It's not.
really everything that we're talking about that we talked about tonight. Having a rational, calm discussion with whoever, and yeah, I know that there are some conversation non-starters with a lot of people. Like if you come to me and AJ, and I'm sure you, Dan, and say trans people are subhuman and they don't deserve any rights, I'm probably not going to have a conversation with you on that one. I might tell you you're full of shit and you should go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
But um, but there are opportunities that we can go and sit down and talk about. Hey, what is it you want out of life? What are the things that you need out of life? And understanding that we all have wants and needs. They may not be the same thing, but generally people have the same wants and needs. Want to have a good home life, being able to take care of their children or their spouse, just the basic things, and being able to identify that you can get across or get past a lot of the irrational fear and hatred that the politicians have been trying to sell us for the last 50 years,
Right.
by understanding that we're all just trying to make our way in this world, and the less that we give the politicians to divide us over, the it's going to be harder for them to scare us to the ballot, but it's going to be better for us making our own way in the world, and having less restrictions and less busybody trying to butt their ways into your lives like that. Let's start having conversation. Let's start talking to people. That's what's going to get us past whatever the hell's going on in this world right now.
And every time you do it, even if you don't reach a solution, you have modeled for other people how to have that sort of conversation.
We can disagree without being disagreeable.
Right.
You know? All right, question number 10. For a perfect week, which populous city banned the construction of new hotels as a way to fight over tourism? Paris, Tokyo, Madrid, or Amsterdam?
It's got to be Paris. That's just the sort of stupid shit the French do all the time.
Sorry.
I mean,
Yeah, I'm not. I would not be surprised if it's Paris. We'll see if somebody. Janice, do you know?
Yeah, because
Janice
Janice
has been
actually
rocking it
knows
today.
all.
right. I
Janice
mean,
has been rocking it.
the Parisians hate Parisians too. Right. I mean, they really are just,
Snobbiness should be an Olympic sport this time.
Right.
So I did find out the Summer Olympics that are going to be in Los Angeles in 2026, 28, something like that. They're going to have box lacrosse as a Olympic sport.
Wow, I didn't know that.
So indoor lacrosse is going to be an Olympic sport, which is good. Awesome. If you ever never watched, if you like hockey, watch box lacrosse. It is a phenomenal sport.
I hope the Iroquois are going to be able to compete as a nation.
I would hope so too.
That would be awesome.
Yeah. All right, let's go. Janice has no idea. All right, let's do Paris. Oh, Amsterdam.
Amsterdam.
Amsterdam it.
Nice. Have you ever seen Euro Trip with the Scotty Doesn't Know song?
Yeah.
I
saw a meme on that today. I was like, Scotty Doesn't Know. That's such a classic song.
Scotty doesn't know, but there's the guy goes to the Wundersex room in with what's her name? Lucy Lawless. All right.
All right,
Well,
so
we have gone late.
9 out of 10. Yeah, we gone late. Thanks everybody for watching. Again, if you can donate to AJ's GoFundMe, get her out of Tennessee. Donate to Michelle Lavoie's GoFundMe. That link is in the chat. Get her back on her feet. We got lots of good things going on. Thank you so much for joining us. Again, we've got a ton of people watching us, and that really, really is awesome. You know, one of the biggest places we got people watching us?
Where?
On Twitter.
New Zealand.
On Twitter?
Twix is showing out for us, and I appreciate that.
Hi, y'all.
Yeah. Hey, Twix.
Hello. We should do the Three Stooges. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. All
Sorry.
right,
Nope.
Dave blew it.
Yeah. Sorry.
All right. Well, we're gonna have an exciting time.
Yeah.
Happy weekend, everybody, and
Happy
say
full
goodnight,
moon
Gracie.
week.
Yeah.
What?
Good night, Gracie. We have a
Good
full
night,
moon this week.
Yep. All right. Have a good one, everybody. Talk to you all next week.